Good evening, T-Mug. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Jill. I think see that you arrived just in the nick of time. I'm glad you're here because otherwise I'd be getting out the straw hat and a cane and doing a soft shoe during your time.
Goodness, don't do that.
No, don't do, and you don't want me to sing either, I tell you. Uh, I want to welcome everybody, the sustaining members, new members, first-time guests. Other than Jill, do we have any first-time guests? I guess not. I think I recognize just about everybody else except for Lori. Hi,
Yeah, I'm a
Lori.
first timer.
Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
And you need not to be a member to attend, but some of the benefits of membership included free raffle tickets, including the super raffle, and tonight's special raffle. Kurt will be taking attendance tonight, and he will fill in the raffle slips for each of the members. To be eligible, the screen name displayed must match with the record of your current T-Mug membership, with the exception of our one call-in member. We know who that is. If we can't identify you, then your name will not be placed in the raffle. Welcome to the Election Day edition of Tucson Macintosh User Group meeting. And next meeting is on Tuesday, February 20th at this same virtual location. In February, we have the Ask Me Anything session hosted by Kevin, an accessibility minute with Chris Wesselman. Tonight, we will learn how to learn new technology with sticks. That sounds a little out of there, but I've seen her presentation at MacStock, and I think it's going to be helpful to most everybody here. Her name is Jill McKinley, and she is known as Jill from the North Woods, usually on Allison Sheridan's podcast. She's a reformed Youper, and those of us who know Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula know what that means. And she's now resides in Madison, Wisconsin. In February, we will unlock the secrets of passkeys with our own Mac Mommy, Melissa Davis, and learn about the early reactions and reviews of the Apple Silicon Pro. Tonight, we have our election, and that's going to happen next. We have a call for candidates. All of the current 5 members have been arm twisted to run again. But we will welcome anyone who wishes to, that includes you, Reg, who has been here since they dug the hole for the foundation, I think, along with Roger. We are going to, if anybody wishes to run for election, now is the time to step forward or nominate your friend in the next window. Are there any nominations? The silence is deafening. Okay, moving on to the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona. Mark, do you have the figures in front of you? You're muted, Mark.
I'm trying to remember how to unmute. Yeah, well, I had private messaged you on the chat, but I'd be happy to present it. The board is donating from the Treasury $200 to the food bank, and we said we'd match any contributions that members sent, and we've received $77 written directly to the food bank that we are going to match. So I'm sending in the 2 checks from the members and $277 from the Treasury.
Okay, excellent, excellent. We didn't get started early enough with this, but I'm sure the food bank could use the money today as well as at Christmas or Thanksgiving. We would like you to take a look at the chat window to see a link for our online presenters review poll, which I'm sure Bob Dahms will be putting up there momentarily. Okay. And the new virtual door prize during our Zoom meetings. Last month's winner was Jerry Cedarquist. Congratulations, Jerry. I hope you use that gift card to good advantage, or will.
Oh, yes.
Tonight we have a very special door prize. We have a Xerox color laser printer. The names of tonight's attendees will be collated into a numbered list, and Siri will pick the winner out of that list. Don't let me close the meeting without picking the door prize winner. Like the super raffle, the eligible screen name will be displayed. The screen name displayed must match the record of current T-Mug members. Jerry, mute your microphone. Are there any other announcements? Is there something I forgot? Okay, then I'm going to turn it over to Bob Dahms, who is going to run the election for the board of directors. Bob, are you ready? And unmute.
Okay. Hope you can hear me now.
Yep.
In accordance with the TMUG Constitution and bylaws, the annual elections are held at the general meeting in January each year. Tonight, we're going to elect the officers for the TMUG 2024 Board of Directors for the positions of President, Vice President, Secretary, Treasurer, and Member at Large. The candidates for each positions are President Bob Wood, Vice President Ridge Prevost, Secretary Kurt Blanchard, Treasurer Mark Jaffe, and Member at Large Roger Harmon. At this time, and with my souvenir from Iowa, where TMUG has been caucusing in the bitter cold, I will entertain one last chance. Nominations for any of these elected positions from the floor. Are there any other nominations? Okay, we're going to go to the next step. And when I ask for motion participants, if you'd hold your hand up for like a 5-second count so our recorder can jot your name down, we will have the formality taken care of. Since there are no nominations from the floor, I will accept a motion that the named candidates be accepted as the final slate of nominations for 2024 and be elected by acclamation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Kurt, I hope you made a note of that. And do I have a second?
Ridge, you can't do that.
Oh, officers are exempt. Well, I did get a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that would be acceptable.
Aye.
Any opposed? I have one hand still raised. Gerald, are you opposed?
No, no, sir. I'm just trying to vote.
Okay, I transitioned kind of quickly, but I saw your hand was still up. Okay, thank you. All right, the motion to accept the elect the current slate of candidates for the 2024 TMUG Board of Directors is now carried. I hereby declare the 2024 elections closed with the named candidates having been elected by majority vote. I thank you all.
Thank you, Bob, for running that very clean election there. Now we're going to move on to a very short presentation by Chris Wesselman, who is going to talk about the Apple introduces the Vision Pro. We don't know much about it other than you can start ordering it on Thursday or Friday, and it will start being delivered on Groundhog's Day. But Chris is going to tell us just a little bit about it. If you're ready, Chris, go ahead.
Okay, so I just put a link in the chat, which you can look at later, which is basically let me see if I can share my screen here. And hopefully, where is the screen I want to share? I love it when Zoom does this. It is the, I think this is it here. Yeah. So this is the, everything here is from Mac Rumors, and which is sort of my go-to. You can look at Apple Insider or your Mac site of choice, but this is sort of their wrap up. And I just put a link to this page so that you can look at it later and get all sorts of information about what it is and how it works. And lots of good stuff on that. And so I know Tony's going to talk about this, I think, in more detail in a future meeting. So I'm going to kind of keep it brief in terms of the pros and cons. I mean, first of all, what is it, right? And I was going to sort of leave everybody with the same question at the end and say, you know, we really don't know. But it's definitely going to have a bunch of streaming services available. Disney and all those folks came up with that this morning. Let me see if I have that real handy here. Was it this one? Anyway, just a ton of streaming services are going to be ready, and that's going to be pretty interesting. The biggest problem that people are really having with this thing is the price. It's $3,500. That doesn't include the lenses that you may need for your eyesight. And so this is definitely, like Kevin and I were talking about earlier in the break, this is definitely not a low-cost device. There have been a lot of complaints. You see the lady here is wearing the cross strap over the top of her head. That apparently is optional. And folks who have used it to, you know, particularly people with, you know, hairs, hairdos, the whole thing, right? It'll really do a job on your hair. And, you know, I have pretty bad hat hair. So if I had one of these on, you know, it would look pretty bad. But the weight apparently is very noticeable. And so, you know, look for lighter versions of these things going forward. So some, you know, some other negatives about it are people have mentioned who have tried these, the VR motion queasiness. You know, if you saw a 3D movie like Avatar, for instance, I had to sit down outside the movie theater for 30 minutes before I could get in the car and drive home because it just really messed with my video cortex. And so, you know, this may be something. The guy from the Wall Street Journal was saying that the floating keyboard doesn't work very well. And for people who like to read reviews, both Engadget and The Verge have apparently extended reviews. So if you enjoy either one of those websites, you might check it out. Apple has just opened the Apple Vision Pro App Store, which will provide some educational material as well. It did get last-minute approval for the Apple Vision Pro, and they have two things that have apparently come up very recently that if you've been following this, you might not have heard about. One is called guest mode, which if you go to somebody's house or, you know, if the whoever has their Apple ID tied to one of these guys, if they want to let their kids check it out to see what it's like, the guest mode has limited privileges against that Apple ID. So in other words, if you go to your friend's house and, you know, he or she gives it to you to put on and try out, it's not going to go into their bank account or something like that. The other thing is travel mode, which apparently will work, is to correct any needed adjustments for airplanes and flying. And so we mentioned streaming. Let's see, here's my note. It's Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, Nat Geo, 150 3D movies, like Avatar. They've got Dune, they've got HBO Max. And immersive content is another big area with wildlife, adventure stuff, dinosaurs is predictably. One interesting thing I found was that Apple, apparently, I think it was as of today, is projecting that the international sales of the Apple Vision Pro will start before WWDC. And where I think that's especially significant are markets like Japan that are really big on video stuff, manga and all of that stuff. So it'd be very interesting to see what comes out of Japan and Asia in terms of this stuff, in terms of content. Let's see. And the Apple Store will be having demos set up. So let me, oh, there's one more thing I want to do on a reshare. Let's see, let's do new share. And I don't want to use up too much of my time here, but Bob sent over something that he thought it'd be fun to see. And where did that go? I wonder if it's in. Oh, here it is. Okay, so everybody can see this. You know what though? I need to redo the share because I didn't check the two little boxes. Okay, they're right here. And this is a promo piece that Apple put out the other day, which is kind of cute. So let's see, let me extend full screen.
Doesn't look like full screen is working.
And it's not playing.
Okay. So that's also available on the site in case you want to watch that again. And we'll stop the sharing.
We didn't see it, Chris.
You
It
did not
didn't
see
play.
it?
It didn't play.
I think YouTube prevents Zoom from working.
Oh no.
Don't worry
I
about
tell
it.
you what, I'll put a link in the chat.
Yeah, do that.
I'll put a link in the chat to save time. Now, one last thing, and I don't know if we'll hear a lot about this, but I mentioned to an old manager of mine from Apple, who's now the Mac lead at a very large consulting firm. And he said he has a client that has been using $10,000 headsets. And they're like mad with joy to be able to have Apples for $3,500 with the Apple OS. Because apparently the OS on the $10,000 ones is horrific to work with. So I said, well, what in the world are they doing? And he said, I can't tell you. So take that at face value. But in other words, there could be a really big market here in something called data visualization. And it sounds a bit sci-fi, but you know, there are people out there who look at exceptions management and different websites and colors and heat charts and all this stuff. And it will allow them to look at a vast array of these things. And you know that previously with screens, you need to have all sorts of different screens all over the place. Now, how realistic that is or when we'll see it, you know, friend of mine compared it to the laser writer and said, you know, the first out of the box, you don't really know what it's going to do, you know, give it a couple of years and we'll see what it does. And we could talk later, but I know we've got lots and lots coming up here. So I may just leave it at that. And I'm sure it's something we will spend time talking about some more.
I'm sure we will. Melissa had a question about, are there any third-party apps? I think the answer is they're coming, but we don't know.
Well, they should be in that app store already. And there are some in there. And I know from my developer account that, which is largely dormant and totally dormant actually, but I've been getting all sorts of little reminders, get your apps into the app store. So, and like I said earlier, I'm real interested to see what comes out of Japan because they've done some fascinating video stuff in the past. So,
Okay, so we're gonna move it over to Ridge to do the news and security update, and he's going to be moving a little faster than normal because we have such a jam-packed timeline tonight. So take it away, Ridge.
Okay. Here we go with the tech update for January. And the software updates are not as many as were last time because there was 2 months worth that we did last time. So the ones that are important here probably are the 1Password update and the Firefox and Chrome updates for those of you that use those. And Little Snitch as well got updated, and SpamSieve as well. And Zoom, we're now working with 5.17.2. And Apple was active as well for the month. And probably the things that are important here are probably the Ventura and Sonoma updates and the Safari updates for Ventura and Monterey, and the iOS iPad updates. And the Magic Keyboard firmware version 206 is out now. And coming from Apple is the Sonoma 14.3 and iOS iPadOS 17.3, tvOS 17.3, and watchOS 10.3, and of course Vision OS after the Vision Pro gets released. Now, as far as the firmware update of its Magic Keyboards, and it patches a Bluetooth vulnerability, the following are the keyboards that get that update. Take a look and see if yours is there. It includes the keyboards with Touch ID and a numeric keypad as well. And it occurs automatically when that item is paired with an Apple device running iOS or macOS or tvOS. And here's that iPhone that fell from 16,000 feet from an Alaska Airlines airplane when a panel on the side of the airplane blew out. When it was found by the side of a road, it was still in working condition. It had a 44% battery charge and was in airplane mode. That's what it looked like from inside the airplane after the panel blew out. And here's something interesting in cases for the iPhone 14 Pro or 15 Pro. It's a case from Clicks Technology. If you still have nostalgia feelings for your old BlackBerry with the keyboard that you could actually press buttons on, this is a case where you slip your iPhone into it and it joins by means of Lightning or USB-C. So you can use the push buttons as instead of having to touch the screen. It's only $139. And we just learned from Chris about the headset that's coming from Apple, and I saw these two images online, and I thought you'd like to see them, especially the one with the across the top of the head strap. And Macworld has some advice for us as to what to do with those AirTags that we get. We can attach them to our keys or leave one in the car and on our favorite toys and on our bike and luggage, in our wallet and our carry-on bag, and in remote control if we are in the habit of losing the remote control in the house, misplacing it. And if you have a special needs person or an elderly relative, they say that's probably a good thing to use one of those tags with. And you can AirTag your child, and you can use it on your cat's or dog's collars. And as far as rumors go, we had a lot of them last time, but this time the only one we haven't seen before is that the studio is going to get updated with a 3 nanometer M3 Apple CPU in it, and should be debuting sometime around the Worldwide Developers Conference, probably this June. And of course, we still have iron-on or sew-on patches and pins to sell. You can contact me or Kurt Blanchard if you want one. And that's that for that section of my presentation. And now we're going to turn to things that have a security interest for this month. Not too many of them. Adobe didn't have any critical software updates for securities interests, and Chrome was updated by Google with 8 total fixes, security fixes. So if you use Chrome, you want to make sure you got the latest version. And Mozilla updated Firefox for the Mac with 18 total fixes. Microsoft had 2 fixes for the latest version of Office 16.80. And Apple's only security update of any import was the Magic Keyboard firmware update. And as far as cybercrime goes, North Korea is still trying to take over infected Macs to upload, download, and delete files with a program called Spectral Blur. And it's a new backdoor to the Mac operating system that appears linked to the recently identified North Korean malware family called Candy Corn. And when that got dissected, the researchers concluded that when it's installed, it can upload, download, and delete files among several other typical backdoor bad acts. And you should be pretty safe if you use safe online habits. That'll probably keep it away from you. And more cybercrime. The Chinese government has discovered how to decrypt device logs for Apple's AirDrop feature, allowing the Chinese Communist government to identify the phone numbers and email addresses of those who share content over Apple ID AirDrop. And they've had a long history of censoring their people and controlling what internet sites can be visited in their country. And AirDrop became very popular in China because the function completely disguises the sender's contact details. As AirDrop transmission does not take place via the internet or cellular phone network, but from an iPhone to iPhone connection and via Bluetooth and a local high Wi-Fi network. It makes it very difficult for the authorities to identify senders, and it allowed local protesters to privately communicate. But now the government says they can decrypt the information that is set in hash values. And so Apple is supposedly working on a secure fix to AirDrop. And once more, a reminder that Macworld Online suggests that if you wanted to buy a version of antivirus, the Intego Mac Internet Security X9 is the one they recommend for paid. And the free version, they say, is good as a vast free antivirus for the Mac. And thanks for your attention. And of course, the overall moral of the story is to stay safe. And I will now stop sharing.
Thank you, Ridge. All important information. And we're going to move on to the main event tonight with Jill. If Jill, you're ready, take it away.
I'm ready. Hopefully this will give you the right screen. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yep.
And you can see my screen okay?
We see you. We don't see your screen yet.
Okay, hold on. Whoa, there.
Now that looks familiar.
All right, good. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm Jill McKinley. I was listening to your conversation. I have an Oculus with the glasses inside of it, and it's fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to the Vision Pro to see how much more amazing that's going to be. I've been an Oculus user for a long time, so I'm excited about it. But thank you so much for having me here. I went to MacStock back in July, and that's where I met Bob, and he invited me to come here and talk to all of you. I did a presentation about SIX technology, and just to give it to you, it's about tools that we use to learn software, to learn technology, and so we'll kind of talk about it. I worked in a software company, a very large software company for enterprise hospitals. Actually, I worked for 2 of them, and getting customers to adopt new technology was my specialty in my last job. And I did it so well that the University of California hired me and lets me work from Wisconsin, which was -12 last night, and be a software expert to do that for them. So it's exciting to try to help people adopt software. And so this presentation is really kind of a threefold thing. How do enterprise users learn software and what's their resistance? But how does it apply to us as users? And how did it apply to me, who was a lifelong Windows user? In fact, I worked for Microsoft as a support agent, as a team lead. And so I worked for Microsoft for about 3 years. We were contractors. So we took the very first calls for Windows 95 at midnight on like August 24th or whatever day it was. So it was exciting stuff. So I'll go through and do my presentation. So I was trying to decide how to do the style of this presentation. Now, before I was a Windows person and now I'm a Mac person. And so I thought, well, maybe I should make this cleaner, or maybe make it even more clean. I think Steve Jobs would have loved this kind of clean look to a presentation slide. All right, that was my little joke. But instead, I decided to make it more like Windows. And, well, no, that's really busy. So can't do that either. So maybe something more modern. No, that doesn't look good either. So, well, okay, we'll just stick with the presentation model that I had before, because, All right. So the first problem is when it comes to technology, and tell me if I'm talking too quickly, because I am a fast talker. So please let me know if, like, whoa, do that. I have all these podcasts that are about 17 minutes long, and I guess they should probably be 30 minutes long if I talked at a normal speed. So I know my problems. All right. So the first thing is there's always new technology. We always have to change, and we always have to stay effective. And that's the problem, is that there are people who get stuck in technology. I was just helping someone out the other day who is stuck on Office 2007 on a very old computer and started just having tons of problems, but didn't want the trouble of migrating to a new technology, a new computer. And I thought, this one's causing you woe. You can't be in any more woe than you have right now. So that's our problem that we're trying to solve. And so then solutions that we're going to talk about in this presentations are about making it easy. How can we make those hurdles lower? And how can we push towards our goals? And getting stuck in technology is not the right answer. It's always going to be moving. I mean, it. You've all seen technology, as I have, throughout our whole lives, go from I remember like the first calculator came out and it was like $700, and my dad wanted one, and it got to like 150, and all it was just plus minus equals, and he just coveted it. So, now we're so far beyond that our calculator is not even a real thing anymore, as part of our phone, just an app, And so then the problem is if we fail at learning new technology, we'll use it sporadically, we will never get good at it, and then we'll just start quietly using the old tech. My friend bought his parents new iPads, and they just don't feel as comfortable with it as they do their old 2007 Windows desktops. And so they're stuck in this technology that's constantly breaking for them because it's old, and not using this amazing iPad they have in front of them that could do everything they wanted to do. You get used to the old things, and that's a point of failure. So that's where we're going to take on sticks in order to have challenges to overcome some of these problems of learning technology. And I suspect that a lot of you, because you're tech people, will have done these types of things. But I'll talk a little bit about, like I said, in sort of 3 different layers, and how we can use these different methods to learn technology better. The first one is, and this is the only book I really refer to, is that there's a book by Dan and Chip Heath, and it's called Switch. And the idea is how do we get our brain to change? How do we help our brain to change? And their analogy is that there's an elephant and there's a rider. And so we have to convince both sides of our brain. And this was a concept that came up from psychologist Jonathan Haidt. But he says that the rider is logical. He's going to say, what's the plan? How are we going to make it work? Where's it? What's it going to cost? Where am I going to put this? You know, all the questions we have about the logistics of technology. They want to know how this is all going to go down. But then the elephant is more emotional. This is hard. I don't want to use it. This is going to cost too much money. It's going to take too much time. I have a job to do. And that's what I get. I get people all the time. I work with doctors, nurses, and people in universities doing research. And they're like, I don't have time to use your technology, Jill. I have a job. I need to do my job. And you're harming me from doing my job because you're making me use this technology. And of course, that's never the goal. The goal is to make you more efficient so that you can get your job done better and more quickly and get back to the things you went into clinical research for, which are the patients instead of the data and the nerd work, you know, and all those types of things. So you always have to address the two sides of people, you know, when you're bringing on new technology. And this is the same thing for me too. I had a Windows machine. I know how to use that Windows machine like nobody else's business. Like I said, I was a Windows support person. I could do everything. I could do everything I wanted to do like that. I could rewrite the registry. I could troubleshoot any problems. I know everything about Windows, but I was becoming quite clear that I needed to switch over to Mac. And so, that was the problem. I didn't know a thing about Macs. I didn't know how to use it. I didn't know what it could do. I didn't know why it was different. But Allison Sheridan, if you've ever met her or listened to her podcast, was someone that I listened to for a long time. It was kind of funny. I went on her Slack channel and it said, "Welcome, Jill, to our Slack channel." And I said, "Hello, robot." You know, I thought it was a bot, and it was actually Allison. And so then we became friends after that point. And slowly but surely, she beat me into becoming a Mac person. So she worked really hard with me, and I just didn't know anything. And so my fear on using a Mac was huge. I won't be able to do anything. Everything's going to take 3 times longer than it's going to take. I need to get presentations done and documents done. And what happened is during the pandemic, Allison recognized an extrovert slowly dying on the vine, locked up in her house. And so she got me into podcasting. And so I just started up last week, number 3, and number 4 is coming in spring. But it was obvious to me that the Mac was superior when it was coming to podcasting. And I didn't have enough money to buy both a nice Windows machine, which I needed a new one, and a Mac. I had to pick. And if I'm going to be a podcaster, the Mac was the clear way to go. But I didn't know anything. And so just like so here's me going out to doctors and nurses and saying, you got to use the new technology. You have to use what's best. This is going to help improve your processes. And then Jill's like, but I don't know what it is, and it's going to take too much time. And I'm like, oh boy, sounding like all my users. So I suddenly realized I needed to figure out methods to learning how to use Mac and do it quickly because my podcast was about to become live. And so I had some pretty steep deadlines. And we'll talk about that path and journey throughout this presentation. So Jill knows nothing. That was true. And we're looking at my first Mac I bought was a Mac Mini back in the first Silicon one, which I think was 2020. And then this was all coming to a head, I think, in 2021 in November with the first Silicon Mac Pro. That was my very first MacBook, because I wanted one computer that could do everything. And so that was what I got. But I didn't know a thing. And this was coming to a head soon because I had to publish my first podcast. So my first stick is the yogurt stick, which sounds funny, but your culture has to support your adventure. So at that point, my culture was not supporting my adventure. I was sitting there with a Windows machine at my side, and I was doing everything on it. I had that Mac Mini sitting there. I never used it because I could get everything done on on that Windows machine so quickly, so efficiently, that there was just my lifestyle, my day-to-day didn't even support using my Mac. So it just sat there. I mean, I think it pretty much sat there for 9 months, not being used at all, except for a few things here and there. I'd tinker with it and I'd play with it, and then I'd shut it down and go back to my Windows machine. So my culture was not supporting my use of Mac. And so I decided it had to, because I teach other people that if you're using your old technology, and in my case, in my job, Excel is the old technology. All the research staff are keeping everything in Excel spreadsheets, and they love those spreadsheets. And everyone will tell me, I'll use your software after I get my spreadsheet done. So now they're doubling their work because they're going to use the old system and they're going to use the new system. And it's because their culture doesn't support the new thing. They can't let go of it. And that was, and as much as I can say, no, you can't do that, I was doing the same thing with my Windows machine. So it got unplugged. It got put in the corner. It was no longer going to be something I could just pull out and use to make a quick presentation, get a document done. My culture had to support the Mac. Then the next one is you have to use a stick of dynamite, which means that you are going to shake up your old life. You're going to shock and awe. And so that comes in with unplugging the Windows machine. I took it downstairs in the basement. It wasn't like I could easily plug it back in anymore. And so I just changed my whole life. And I suggest that too to my customers, that you have to get off of the spreadsheets. You are going to be miserable while you're doing two systems. And just like I was being ineffective by using two systems. And so I think that helps us too. Like if you were going to try to adopt new software, you were going to adopt, perhaps a new time tracking system or a new calendar system, but you're used to your old one. While you're using both of them, it's just never going to work. So you got to shake up your life and start doing whatever it is that you have to do if you need to go down this new direction. The clock hand, that means we're going to have scheduling help us. And scheduling is a principle of just setting aside time to learn. It's easy to just try to do things by intuition, but I started setting aside Sunday nights. For whatever reason, Sunday nights were pretty clear for me. And so I would listen to podcasts, Mac podcasts, or look at Mac YouTube channels and learn something. And so I would go through and do things hands-on with these educational systems. I would always try to learn along with something, but it didn't happen until I scheduled time to do it. I set aside, this is my learning time. And I still do that to this day. So I'll listen to Mac Geek Gab and I'll just do the things along with them when they'll say it. Did you know that you could press Control-Alt? I say Control-Alt, but Command and do this key and it'll do this thing. And I'm like, oh, cool. And I'll do it along with them. So that's how I learn. But you'll have to schedule time, because if you don't do it, you're never going to find time to understand the software. The teacher stick. So you're going to have to use the right training resources. And that means the right training resources for you. I was and am a software trainer. I have been for the last 15 years. And sometimes it was a classroom. Sometimes it was a recorded training. And sometimes it was me just sitting on someone's desk and saying, hey, what's going on? What can I do to help you? How can I, make this better for you? So you have to use the right resources in the right way. And that means a lot of times figuring out who you are. Are you someone who listens best? And so you want something in an audio format? Do you want something in a video format? You might be using some kind of video, like YouTube or something like that to learn new things. Sometimes reading training manuals is how some people like to do it, but other people like to watch someone showing them. So try to figure out what the right resources are for you that helps you best learn things. I know that there are people who just sit down and they just try to knock out that manual and then they get discouraged and they can't figure it out. I mean, my best friend is like that too. She buy a new software piece. She's on the verge of switching from Windows to Mac. So this contagion is moving onwards, but she's worried that she won't be able to learn it. And I'm trying to show her pathways that work for her, because she's a different person than I am, on how to do that. And there comes the axe, which means you're going to have to limit your goals to succeed. You know, I think we dream of learning everything all at once, and that's just not going to happen. There is something called essentialism. There was a fellow who wrote a book about that. But basically, you can't do everything all the time. And so the same thing with me and the Mac. I just wanted to learn everything. I wanted to go and figure everything out and have my entire life, you know, working in this Mac. But first of all, I had a podcast that was coming out in a couple of weeks. I needed to learn that right away. And so it has taken time. Again, this is, you know, now been, you know, 2.5 years ago. And so I've been slowly feeding things out and focusing on a thing at a time. Okay, first I learned how to podcast on a Mac. Then I learned how to clean up my audio so it sounded better on a Mac. And then I keep going and going. And so I'm trying to limit my goals, because if I try to do everything, I'm going to fail at everything and I'm going to get frustrated and it's not going to work, you know, for anything. I'm not going to become a podcaster or a Mac user or an automator because I'm not limiting my goals. So that's the next step. So Jill went from knowing nothing. So now I have little tiny seedlings growing. And so I have basic actions that I know how to do on Macs. You know, this is way back then. And I knew some basic apps. I could get through and read my email. I could browse the web. Those are all good things. But I also got my podcast up and running, and I was able to figure out how to do very basic activities. But suddenly my day-to-day was getting better. It wasn't proficiency yet, but at least I wasn't suffering just by trying to figure out how to do anything. So we're growing here. We're growing a little tree. So that takes us into the next phase. And I guess maybe I'll open it up. Are there any questions about the first part at all? Or am I talking so mind-blazingly fast that I've left everyone back at hello? Okay.
Terrific so far.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll keep going. So next one is the glue stick. And the glue stick is trying to stick your technology to other activities. So again, your computer or your technology can't just be this isolated thing out in the middle of nowhere. If it's just this Mac Mini that's sitting on my desk, that's not connected to anything, it's not a part of my life, is not required, I'm not going to use it. And so it's stickiness that's trying to take it and make it a part of everything I do. So again, part of it had to do with getting rid of the Windows. Now everything I must do has to be on this Mac. But then other parts of it has to do with my schedule. I started, you know, keeping my schedule on a Mac, and there were apps that I loved on iOS. I had no idea that they were Mac applications. And so then you had the full features of them. And so then you started seeing things about like Day One Journal or Todoist or Fantastical. And so now I'm starting to integrate Mac apps, Mac activities in my day-to-day schedule, and, you know, linking everything to technology. And I think I don't think I mentioned this later, but I started to control my house with this. So I had Hue lights, I had some various smart devices out there. And so suddenly I'm like, well, how can I make this better? How can I integrate everything through HomeKit and start making it really a part, sticking it to every part of my life? And so I did some fun things with scheduling lights. I have now room sensors. And so it's all like Star Trek. I walk in and out of the room and everything turns on. But then I have a bird. I have a pet canary. And this gets kind of funny. I wanted to learn how to automate. And so I created automations to play him gentle bird songs in the morning, and then go to pop rock in the afternoon, and then go to classical sleepy time music in the evening, and then shut off. And then his light, sun rises in the morning, turns on, and then sunsets at night. So then I started building this whole house around this bird to try to get him to have like a nice life, even when I'm not at home. And so, but I learned a lot, and now it's like stuck to my life. So now the Mac and Homebrew and all these other pieces that I have are like an integral part of everything I do in my life. So I stuck, for me, this Mac activity into every aspect I had. And that, suddenly makes me depend on the Mac. And now I can't go back because boy, it would take a lot of work to go back to Windows. So, and I couldn't even do half the things I do now. So no fun at all. Okay, crutches. And, keep going forward, even if things are broken. We don't like crutches, but, they help people who can't walk. And so that means if you're starting to fail, you'll get at some point when you have a new technology, whether it's going from Windows to Mac, or you're trying to get into Vision Pro, whatever is going to be the next new technology, you're going to have a point where it's frustrating and you're struggling and you're angry and I just should go back and do the thing I was doing. When I think of Vision Pro, I think, wow, I could take this when I go out on the road. I have to go to Sacramento a couple times a year. Wouldn't that be nice to have all my monitors, in virtual world and be able to do everything everywhere? But at some point, I'm going to say, oh, this is going to be much easier if I just haul out a monitor, if I just haul out, real physical things and not do this. And at some point, you're going to get frustrated because, it's not going to work for you. And instead, you're going to have to find out ways of just moving forward. And that might be looking on the internet, looking at Reddit, looking for ways that other people were able to solve those problems. But you're going to have to go figure out and start tackling those things. I think when people learn new technology, they just get agitated with things. And then they just let it fuel on and on and on instead of actually looking it up. I have a friend of mine, it was so hilarious. Okay, I'm going to tell a side story here. Is my friend's parents called me at 3 a.m. because my friend's mother was sick. And so I went to the hospital, took them in. And so I told my friend, I said, why did she call me instead of you? I'm happy to do it, but why? She goes, oh, well, we turn our phones off at night so it doesn't beep at us. And I'm like, but your parents, And so I said, did you not know you can have focus modes that will shut almost everything else down except your parents? And she's like, really? And so I, started teaching them how to use focus modes. But because they never get over those little annoyances, they're not doing anything that's making this better for them, So keep going, learn how to fix things, and, talk to friends if you don't know how to solve some of these problems. The shepherd's hook, and that means to be the owner of your own learning. I'll see a lot of times at work, people don't want to learn the new software. They don't want to do it. And so I check in on them quarterly and say, hey, how's it going? Is this doing all right for you? And well, I should really learn this more. I should really do this. And, I said, well, I noticed that this isn't there and that's not there. Are you having any struggles at all? Oh, and they're acting like this is happening to them. They're not taking ownership of this, and it is part of their job to do this software because other people need to know what they're doing. If I have a spreadsheet on my desk, the whole institution doesn't know how your research is going. That's not how anything works anymore. We all have to know what everyone's doing. And so same thing here is if you're just going like my friend and her phone, she goes, oh, I don't know, this thing just keeps beeping at me, I'm not sure what it is. Like she's a victim of her iPhone, when clearly there are solutions to this, and she has to be taking ownership of learning so that she can do things. I mean, the iPhone alone, even if she's not a Mac user, does amazing things to help you live your life. And so, that's why she needs to do that, take ownership. And this one's one of my favorite. This is the hero stick, which means find champions to help you win your battles with you. And I think of your user group, that's it right there. You guys are each other's champions. I don't know how these meetings go, but I'm sure you're helping each other out all the time. And so you get stuck, you get in a place, you get some help. Allison Sheridan has these things called tiny tips now. It was because I kept asking her questions and she thought, oh, these are great tips for everyone. So she's been my champion throughout this whole thing of helping me learn how to use a Mac. And anytime I get significantly stressed or stuck, she's there to help me out. So she's always been there to help with those things. But find champions, that can help you do these things. And even those champions can be online. They could be Reddit people. They could be bulletin board people. I remember I was always part of bulletin boards. But there's someone out there who's been through the struggle and can sort of be your champion when it comes to that. Okay, so I went from basic using my Mac by using these tools and getting some heroes and getting some ownership in my own learning. Now I know some things. I went through all my settings. I got my Mac set up perfectly, so it's exactly how I like it. But also I got really functional with it. I got Synology drives. I got my backups going. I even got into Time Machine, which is just the trippiest thing I've ever tried before. So I deleted a file. I went, whoa, what is this? But I'm starting to get better at it. I'm starting to learn how, Mac works and how all the different functionalities of Mac. And so now, in the middle of this, I'm pretty good and I can get things done in a much quicker time point. So I even have some tricks that I've been doing to write my podcasts. A lot of my podcasts are books about book, like I sort of review a book. And I found ways of using shortcuts to be able to help me write those show notes faster. So it's really been phenomenal for me. But by using those past tools, now we're getting somewhere. So here's the fun sticks. We have to use those because fun activities get completed. If we make this dragged out, miserable, something we dread doing, which I think at the beginning I was with the Mac. Again, I'm a Windows person. I know it up and down. I had fun with Windows, except when 11 came out. But, I really enjoyed my time with Windows. Yeah, Windows kind of sapped the joy out of it for me. And then Windows 12, a whole upgrade 11 years later where they just moved the button from here to there, which I don't get that at all. But now we had to make it fun. And then that's when I started doing those activities about like getting automations done and getting my birds automated, my Christmas lights this winter. I started really making Mac a fun part of my life, not just a tool for business or a tool for my podcast, but it started becoming enjoyable to me because at a moment's notice, I can do almost everything. And then I just went out even over Christmas and bought 2 new TVs, but they were low cost because I was hooking them up to Apple TVs. And now I can broadcast my Mac to them and do other amazing things, so having this television, which is beautiful as as a second monitor, it's just been fun. So I can paint and watch YouTube videos and do things that I belong to some like crafting apps, and I can put them up on the big screen now through Apple TV and paint along with it. And it's just made everything more fun. So me getting better at Macs has now become fun instead of this something you have to do. The matchstick is sometimes you got to light a fire and shine the light. I always like that joke where there was an old joke where it says a policeman saw a drunk guy looking in under a street light for his keys. And he says, well, do you remember where you lost your keys? And he goes, oh yeah, back in that dark alley, but I can't see in there. I can only see out here. We get in the darkness and we're struggling because we can't see what we're doing. And we prefer to stay in the light. And that means we prefer to do the things we're good at, do the things we know how to do, or do the things that are well traveled. I think the one thing that struck me about Mac the most is it doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care if you're a pastor, if you're a podcaster, if you're an artist, if you're working in television and movies, or if you're just a regular person who's trying to get a Word document out. It is trying to make you good at whatever it is you're getting to do. And so you shouldn't just do the mundane things with your new technology. You should strike a fire and go into those dark crevices and do something exciting that will really make your lives better. And then the ruler, which is you can't manage what you can't measure. Because I'm a project manager, so we have to say these things. But I started putting benchmarks in place about where I wanted to be with my Mac learning. I wanted to learn how to do this in the month of November, in the month of December, when I have some free time because of vacation and holidays. I want to learn this next thing. I'm trying to get into video now. I am hating video. I got a brand new camera, but I'm trying to get better at it. And so that I'm not so uncomfortable in video. But can I start doing YouTube or Instagram or other things? But I have a learning schedule of where I want to go with all of this. And so again, if you don't give yourself a schedule, if you don't measure where you're at in your learning, you'll kind of falter at some point. At some point, you're going to be saying, like my friend does, oh, I know my iPhone enough. This is good enough. And there are so many more things that even my friend could learn, or even I could learn about my Mac that would bring me even more enjoyment. So I'm a firm measurer in measuring things. And then oars. The oars are row with other people. And that's you guys. You are all rowing together because you're in a team, you're in a group, you know, you have an organization there to help you row with others. And so don't just do technology and things alone, but do things with others. Now, Allison and I have sort of like this podcasting group together because I'm learning things on Hindenburg and I show her some things. And then she'll say, oh, did you see this thing? This is really cool. And we help each other because we're both podcasters using similar technology. And so now we're rowing together and we're growing in our use together. So it makes everything better when you can do something together. And then the branch, which is part of it. See your learning as part of a bigger organism, you know, so again, attach yourself to something bigger. My use of technology, I have to stay. I mean, this is my specialty at work. I'm great at technology. I'm great at software. And so I'm making that part of the bigger organization. I have to stay on top of things, learn software because I'm a crucial part of my organization in helping software work. And so if you can make, again, your technology part of something bigger, it'll help you too. We're almost done with the sticks. I had, believe it or not, when I created this presentation, 13 more sticks that all got cut out. So you'll be grateful for that. Okay. The churro stick, which means you got to reward and celebrate. You know, if you hit benchmarks, if you hit learning things, when I got my first podcast out, you know, celebrate that and pat yourself on the back. It feels dumb. I mean, I come from that, you know, like, okay, Jill, good job. You know, it sounds weird, but you do have to celebrate, you know, when you come through these benchmarks. And so when I got to my bird and automating my bird, which I know sounds silly, I bought him a HomePod, you know, an old used HomePod, but he has his own HomePod now so that it plays all his favorite songs. And there's a song called Foggy Breakdown. I don't know, but it's some banjo thing that Steve Martin plays, and it's his favorite song on the planet. And when that comes on his HomePod, boy, that is a happy bird. But celebrate, you know, make those things fun and exciting. And so you could do that. And then the almost last one, the flag, which means visibility is everything. If you don't make your learning visible, if you don't, you know, when I bought my Mac, and I told Allison at that time, I bought my Mac, and I didn't say anything about it ever again. And because I was not using it, that was the whole point. When you don't have visibility into what you're trying to learn, whether it's a new exercise program or it's a new technology or anything like that, visibility is everything. One of the things that I got with these TVs and why I wanted the Apple TV is because I have a gym over behind me. And so I wanted to be able to do the Apple Fitness in my gym. And now I do it with a friend, and we have visibility in learning this new technology of Apple Fitness together. But if you can make things visible to other people, you will be more successful than just sitting there being quiet and not secretly using your new technology. So my horizon is getting more into customization. I think I've succeeded in that. I'm really good at customization now, but now I'm working on shortcuts. I'm working in, like I said, doing shortcuts with my whole house. Unfortunately, Apple Music in the last update broke every Apple Music shortcut. So my whole bird song thing went faltering down in a big crash. But I'm learning other shortcuts to make myself better when I'm making my podcast, making myself better when I'm writing things. I'm learning better touch tool. I'm trying to use more advanced tools to try to make life better. Like I learned how to do the hyper key. Is that what it's called? I learned how to make the hyper key, and I'm like, this is so cool. I feel like I've opened up the whole world for me. So I'm getting better at this, but this is the next frontier for me, is becoming a better shortcut user. And so then the very last stick is stick-to-itiveness. Get it? Stick-to-itiveness. Because we got to just keep going. If we give up, if we get away from it, we're sunk. So we just have to keep on going. So there you go. That's my my future knowledge again is learning to troubleshoot more. Yeah, and that's my other thing. In advanced automation, learning to troubleshoot is crazy. I don't know. I had this weird thing happen. I had no idea how to fix it, and I just said, "Okay, Jill, you know." My podcasts are all smart, you know, small steps, start with small steps, just do the small step, just go through this incrementally and figure this out. And with a little help from some other people, I was able to, but I don't know how to troubleshoot Macs. And I'm always dreadful of the day that the word nuke and pave comes my way. But okay, we're going to get there, and we're going to get there the same way we got through everything. So, and that is the end. And I wonder if you have any questions.
Jill,
I have a
thank you.
question, Jill. How do you support your clients from your Mac who are using Windows?
Well, first of all, I have a Windows. So I work for the University of California, and they sent me a Windows machine to work on during work. So I work with on their computer during work times. So, and then, you know, I notice as time goes by, I'm getting worse and worse at Windows. Like I'm like doing the keyboard command for Mac, and I'm like, oh, Mac, not Windows. So yeah, so they gave me my own computer, so I don't really do anything with it. Yeah. But supporting my friends and my friends' parents who are still on Windows, ugh, yeah, that's been hard.
Or who you cut your teeth on.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. What'd you say at the beginning?
I said the parents, that's who you cut your teeth on.
Yeah, that's
training.
right. Yeah, that's right. You know, it is funny because I think I got into doing support because my mom wanted to learn how to crochet. So I bought a book, or I got a book from the library, taught myself how to crochet and taught her how to crochet. And I think that started me down the support of being in product support, training, technology. And so I've been there ever since. But yeah, you can teach people things. Yeah.
Jerry Gifford, you got your hand up?
I'm curious, in the beginning of your presentation, you said something about, I knew there was time to move to a Mac.
Hmm.
And then you started, then the next thing you said was, well, what does a Mac do? You know, it seemed like you had the horse in front of the cart, and I wondered what was going on there.
Oh, gotcha. Well, part of it has to do with the fact that I was starting this podcast. Allison Sheridan, who is, you know, has a Mac podcast, and so she's all about Mac. You know, I would try to look for anything that could replace the apps that she used to produce her podcast. And of course, WordPress is WordPress, whether you're in Mac and Windows, that's fine. You know, posting a feed suddenly became the problem. So there's a software from Reinvented Software that produces an RSS feed, and I can schedule it because I traveled for work. So and now I have 3 podcasts and coming 4, maybe 5, maybe 6, but I can schedule them, you know, get them ready, schedule them, and they issue at the right time. That is a Mac only app. And so I realized I can't replace that. Hindenburg was both. So I started, when I bought the Mac Mini, buying software that would work both places, you know, like Hindenburg. But at some point, I realized I was stuck without Feeder from Reinvented Software. I was stuck without some of the tools that were on Mac only that Allison used. And I thought, yeah, my life would be so much easier if I just had this one thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Allison
life
is
has
quite
been
the
easier.
influencer.
Oh yeah, she's cost me all the money. All the
Yep.
money. Yeah. So sometimes I find something cool and she goes, "Oh, now I'm gonna have to buy that." And I'm like, "Sorry, dude, you made me buy a Mac Pro, MacBook Pro. Nothing."
So you don't feel bad at all.
No, no, not at all. But I mean, you know, and I started realizing, I think too, that there were so many apps I used on my iPhone I loved, like Day One, like Fantastical, that I had no idea were Mac apps. And so suddenly I get into Mac and I'm like, oh, this is nice. And then I would find something, oh, that's nice, you know. And so, and I'm from the UP, you know, like in the show Fargo. So every once in a while, like, oh yeah, that's really good, eh? You know, that's how but I, you know, and I would be very excited because suddenly I found something new I could do that I wasn't able to easily do in Windows.
The iPhone and the iPod are gateways, or gateway
Oh,
drugs to the Mac.
yeah, yeah. I started with the iPhone 4S. actually, I think I bought the first iPad, and then I bought the iPhone 4S, and then I got the iPad Pro, and then I got all the Windows, and then I got AirPods, and then, then I got the MacBook, or I got the Mini, and then the MacBook, and then I got Apple TV and HomePod, and I'm just lost. Yeah.
You're
And is
drinking
your
the Kool-Aid,
Vision,
as we say.
Yeah.
is your Vision Pro on order?
No, it's funny because I do really want one, primarily because I have this vision of a Vision Pro of, having, like, being able to sit anywhere and have everything with me without monitors and everything else. I don't know that it's going to happen the first time out, but I am, I'm excited to watch how this goes, and I believe there'll be new iterations of them that will be much cheaper, than this first round. So I'm gonna wait, but.
Jill, thank you so much for your time, your enthusiasm, and sharing all this with us. I mean, we've gotten some really good comments already in the chat, and it's been wonderful to see you again,
It's great seeing you too.
even from Wisconsin. And I just got an email from a friend in Wisconsin. She said, "Going from the gym to my car, my sinuses froze up today."
Yeah, that's right. My car didn't start from Friday until Sunday, and then it got to like 6 degrees on Sunday, and I jump started it and ran off and like drove around for an hour to keep it going. So yeah.
So I imagine that you pack a set of jumper cables in your car all winter long.
Yeah, I have a box. It's a self-contained box, which I suggest everyone on the planet getting, which will jumpstart your car. So you don't need a
Okay.
person, you don't need jumper cables. You just clamp it on and boom, the car starts up.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Jill, we're going to ask you for one more thing, and that's you're going to help us choose a winner of the
Oh,
special raffle prize. But before we do that, I want to tell everybody about it a little bit. It's a Xerox color laser printer. In looking it up, I found that the MSRP is like $630 on this item. Ridge bought it, I think, just before COVID lockdown, and I hope he didn't pay that much for it. But Jerry said, "Gee, you should show some of the printouts from it." And this is just on plain old copy paper from Wally World, and it's really pretty darn good. Here's another one from the manual for it. And here's something else. I forget even what it is, but just let you know that it prints really well. I took it home. I opened it up. I unboxed it. I connected it to my Mac OS 13 computer. And I was concerned because it had been sitting so long that it might not have drivers and so forth, and just plugged it in by USB and went to town. And then I even got the AirPrint working. I didn't try the Ethernet, but I presume it's going to be just fine too. So if you would ask your S lady for us to pick a number between 1 and 28, maybe we can find us a winner.
oh, okay. Let's see now. Do I have S Lady on anywhere? All right. Is it gonna turn all your series on and make them all ask?
I hope not. Just go
Okay,
ahead.
okay. Hey Siri, pick a number. What was the number? 1 to 28?
1 to 28.
Okay. Hey Siri, pick a number from 1 to 28.
Okay, I found this on the web for pick a number. What is the number 1 to 28? Okay, hey Siri, pick a number from 1 to 28. Check it out.
Well, that didn't work out. Here, watch
Try
this.
a
Pick a
random
number
number between
between.
1 and 28.
Okay. Hey Siri, pick a random number between 1 and 28.
A random number between 1 and 28 is 5.
5.
5.
Number 5 is Kevin. Kevin, would you like this
Kevin.
printer?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I will email you tomorrow and we'll work out some way for us to meet somewhere in Tucson. Because Kevin lives in the far northwest of Greater Tucson, and I live in the far southeast of Greater Tucson. So we'll find out how we can do that, and we'll get it to you, Kevin. Congratulations. Also, we have some posters for you. I think I
Yes.
have that set aside, and we also have some for everybody here. I'm going to find that URL again.
Bill, would you post your other podcasts in the chat?
Yes, please. Jill, let us know how we can get in touch with you and how we can find your podcasts and so forth while I stumble around with this stuff.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And thank you for asking. And if you just look under Jill McKinley, I think I'm the only one who podcasts, so you can find all of them, but I'll put them in the chat. Was
Bob Wood,
Yeah.
on your list are numbers 1 and 28 blank.
No?
Well, if Siri's picking a number between 1 and 28, does that mean 1 and 28 can't win?
1 and 28 are valid numbers.
Yes, but if
One is
Siri-
me, and I can't win.
Okay,
And I'm not going to say who 28 is, Melissa, because
no, Bob, but my question
This
is,
is my
if
birthday.
the question is,
I think doing that we have gotten the first or the last number.
Yeah, we have in the past.
In
I
the
think I
past.
remember somebody being a 1.
Okay.
good.
So in the chat, you see a URL for this shared album that you can use to look at and see what posters and other swag we have that we got from the South Jersey Macintosh user group. It's kind of a story, but I went through it in the past, so I'm not going to do it again. And if you want any of that stuff, get in touch with me and you can come and pick it up, or I can mail it to you, but you're going to be paying for the postage. So, and also Bob Dahms reminds us that the feedback form, the link to the feedback form can be found in the chat as well. We really welcome that you fill out the form and let us know, because that helps us get better and more relevant items to you in the future. So, okay. So other than that, Jill, did you tell us you told us how to get a hold of you and your
apparently not. Apparently I don't know how to do that. So hold on. I know how to do it. I'm just kidding. I just didn't do it right. So let me say not direct message. Say to the meeting group.
It's in the newsletter, her email address and all that stuff.
Okay.
So
Yep. And
there you go.
There you go.
And we have a podcaster with us now. That's Melissa, and she'll be back in next month and giving us the secrets of passkeys.
oh, nice. Very
Help
awesome.
us with that. And Jill, you're certainly
Can't wait.
welcome to join us in the future, should you decide to do so. I
Thank
think
you.
you're signed up for the newsletter, and you can come anytime. We'd be happy to have you, happy to have your wisdom and so forth shared with us. And is there any other questions for Jill or in general that we need to talk about before we close it out tonight?
A big thank you, Jill. That was wonderful.
Yes, thank
yes,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I appreciate
Way to start off the new year.
Oh.
Okay.
Thank you.
With that, I
Well.
want everyone to drive safely on the way home. Jill, keep it between the ditches and out of the snowbanks. And we'll see you again in a month.
Driving the snow bikes is the best part. So
You ever go up to Lake Winnebago and drive across the lake? They take everybody's old Christmas trees and line them up across the lake to make a road across the lake, which
No, but-
sounds really weird to people who grew up in Arizona.
yeah, no,
What do
I
you mean
walked around
driving across the lake?
Yeah, all right. I walked around the lake here, and I've driven on lakes in other places, but never in Lake Winnebago. But yeah, I can see how that would work.
We
Okay.
drive across lakes here. It's just dry lake beds.
Oh,
Right.
right.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good month, and we'll see you next month.
Good night, everyone.
Okay,
thank
you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Oh, Bob, save the chat.
Roger's taking care of that for us and sending it off to Susan because it automatically gets saved to him.
Aha.
Good night.
Good night.